Ladies and gents, welcome to the first Power to Talk episode. We are here at you live with the main man himself, Mr. Pops, owner, initiator, founder of Powerpipes, Pops aka Kamil, my main man. Also happens to be my dad, but we'll keep that on the DL for now, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, Mr. Pops, tell us what's popping, bro. What's good?
All good, my brother, man. Just off the topic, bro. It's, this cold has been something else, huh?
Yeah.
It's been really cold,
It's one of those days, we got our coffee, we got to keep warm.
Yeah.
Winter up, layer up, you know how we do.
This is how we do the power pipes, a nice cup of coffee, and we do our podcast,
That's how it's done. So, ladies and gents, we're out here with the first episode for our series that we're going to be starting. Welcome to the first official Power to Talk podcast by Powerpipes, bringing you all the good stuff, car-related, non-car related. You know how we do. Let's get it. So, first order of business, main man. Shoot me something, bro. So, I've heard this story countless of times growing up. Obviously, I've heard it throughout the mill. Give us and the viewers a rundown of basically how you got Powerpipes started and what got you started into the modification industry.
Basically, every guy from Durban wants to come up to Johannesburg, and looking for greener pastures, bigger money, better money kind of, So I was one of those guys who was always exploring and wanted to explore. So hence, that is how I ended up in Johannesburg with the notion of coming and looking for a job.
Cool stuff. And then so like on your journey of basically looking for betterment, tell us, how did you start up? Like what got you in the car industry? Like what put you in the motorsport industry specifically as opposed to so many other industries we have out there?
Basically, like I said, this was my first job. The first job that I basically got into, or basically the first job that I was employed at, was at an exhaust manufacturing company. There it was a factory that used to manufacture exhaust systems, and hence a job was created for me because I had known someone there, and that is how I got into, so to say, the exhaust business.
100%. And then obviously from there, it kind of just kicked off, escalated into better things.
Yeah, and then you know how's it, once you're in it, then you always want improvement,
100%.
You always want to up your game kind of. So hence from manufacturing to sales to office environment, etc. That happened over a period of about 3 to 5 years. But then what happens as well is you tend to stagnate,
100%.
Because your growth in an office is just between the four walls of where you're working.
Definitely. So after that, what set you up to basically, what was your first shop? Tell us about your first shop, your first endeavor.
Basically, how we got into it was, like I said, from manufacture to sale, then into fitment,
100%.
And then, my first experience in a fitment center was at Marshall Street, if I remember clearly, in the old days. Yeah?
Back in them days.
Go to Marshall and Durban Street. I remember those good old days. Lots of good and bad took place there as well. So the good we'll talk about, the bad we'll leave that behind, But nevertheless, that was in my young days where a lot of ignorance was also the order of the day. But like I said, we all go through that phase in life where you're growing up and eventually you mature and become from a boy into a man, into a father, into a husband, and into everything else,
So your first shop was obviously called K&N Performance, which somehow evolved into Powerpipes. Tell us, how did the name Powerpipe basically come about, and how did you initiate the name Powerpipes? Where did Powerpipes come from?
History going back, like I said, the first fitment center was in Marshall Street.
Yeah.
Thereafter, basically, I moved over to Marshall and Van Willig. And that was the branch I was basically running at the time of sale.
Yeah.
And hence, I made the boss an offer and he accepted, and that is how I got into the fitment game,
Okay, pretty fresh. But now I'm talking of the name itself, Powerpipes, those two words specifically. How did you basically inculcate power and pipes together in one?
As you mentioned earlier on in the interview, that initially the company was trading as K&N Performance Exhaust. The K and the N came from a very simple source. The K was the first initial of my name and the N of my wife's name,
Sweet.
So hence, that is how the K and N came about. But thereafter, we found that there was a brand of filter called K&N as well. So people kind of linked the exhaust to the filter.
Obviously,
there was no link. But
that makes a lot of sense. So you evolved from K&N to Powerpipes. Tell us, like, how did you brainstorm that name? Like, it's not just like something you can just think about on the spur of the moment.
What had happened was we had some issues later on in the years of our business, whereby obviously it became a copyright issue, whereby now people started taking offense of the K&N name.
Yeah.
And hence we had to basically give up the name, of K&N Performance
So
Exhaust.
you basically rebranded now into Powerpipes.
Yeah, so basically K&N Performance Exhaust rebranded into Powerpipes Performance Exhaust.
100%. And like the inspiration from the name, like was it a friend? Did you kind of like throw some words around? Was
the name
it like
Powerpipes? Just to get back onto the name of Powerpipes, we were standing around the counter, I remember, one afternoon, and trying to brainstorm a name for the new company,
Yeah.
And then one of my friends, I wouldn't mention his name though, but why don't you just call it Powerpipes, Exactly. I'm doing it exactly. Just call it Powerpipes, and I said, that sounds good. And that is how the Powerpipes name basically came about, just by standing around a bunch of friends and just brainstorming a name kind of, And then the one guy just pops up and says Powerpipes,
Well, Powerpipes, it's a kind of like a very widely known name across, like I'd say it's a household brand. You have the guys which are basically much older, much younger, still up and coming. So when you say Powerpipes, I mean, it's very synonymous with the type of work that we do. So tell me something like, throughout these years of business, what sets Powerpipes apart compared to like other performance centers, or I say exhaust centers specifically? Like what necessarily would be like the differentiating factor between Powerpipes and any other exhaust fitment center?
You see, as you would read in my editorial, or my editorial, as you want to call it, that I always wanted to be different. Normal fitment centers are boring.
Basically,
you just put a car on a ramp, take an all exhaust, fit an aftermarket exhaust, and it drives away. So I opted to do something different, break away from the normal trend, and hence that is how we evolved into the performance market as such, And at that time, we're talking now 35, 38 years, maybe plus minus ago. It wasn't as big as the market is now.
Yeah.
But obviously there was a market for it.
Yeah.
And hence that is how we started. And as cars evolved, as performance evolved, as people grew up, hence what had happened was obviously the brand also grew with it as well.
So speaking of like evolution in like the motorsport or exhaust fabrication centers, tell me, like, how do you keep up with like the latest trends? How do you keep up with like the latest trends, or basically what's new on the market? Like, how is it that we are able to, or you are able to basically keep up with that market? Like, what's your trend analogy? Like, how do you come about doing it?
Look, basically what happened, like I said, cars are evolving, performance is evolving, and people are getting more and more educated with YouTube and with Google, etc.
100%, yeah.
So hence what happens is now you got to up your game.
Definitely.
You have to know what's going down. You need to do a lot of research in advance, basically.
Yeah.
Of the new vehicles that's being launched. What are the do's, what are the don'ts, what are the pros, what are the cons, what are the highs, what are the lows.
Yeah.
So hence like that, what you do is you do a lot of research, you do a lot of behind the scenes work.
Yeah.
And you have to have this knowledge, for the reason being that when a client calls you and he mentions some terminologies, you need to be familiar with what he's talking,
100%.
Example, the new word on everybody's lips is catalytic converters. 25 years ago, there's no such thing as a catalytic converter. If you talked of a cat 25 years ago, then we talk of the cat, a pet cat,
Yeah.
Not a catalytic converter on a car's exhaust system.
100%.
So hence, that's just one example of how terminal has changed. Turbos have come into play. I should say, cars are being launched with different softwares now that enhances your performance and sound level as well when it comes to the different modes that you select on your gearbox, etc.
Yeah.
So hence what happens is you have to now, like I said, you have to do a lot of behind the scenes work, researches as such. So when clients call you and things come in, then you know what to talk
Always
about.
one up, 100%. So like you've basically seen like a complete evolution of like cars from like back in the day, I'm talking like early 90s to like your mid 2000s. You've seen that evolution and how basically technology has enhanced these engines.
Yeah. So again, like I said, we've been through the era of where it was just petrol, diesel. Then it came to, I should say, normal aspirated.
Yeah.
Then came the turbos.
Yeah.
And then comes all the new, performance mods and goodies that
100%.
go with it,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So like back in your day, there weren't really much turbo applications launched on like your average road cars.
Yes.
I think there's one specific car I remember growing up, which was an Uno Turbo.
Uh-huh.
That was like the only turbocharged car basically on the market that came from factory with the turbo that everyone was all hardy-da about. So in your time, we're talking about your inline sixes, your naturally aspirated V8s, your V6s. So tell us, like in working with these cars, how is it that you see that your V8 engines of those days as opposed to the turbocharged eras? Like, what do you personally prefer?
You see, you must understand one thing. In the old days, we had normal aspirated engines.
Most of
So
them.
hence, just going a little back and forth now, in the old days, you were driving cars. Meaning you drove the car in the old days.
Yeah.
Today, the cars are driven for you.
100%.
So for you to understand. So hence, in the old days, or I'd say in the old era of non-turbo era, of normal aspirated era, then you had to do a lot of mods within the engine bay in order to get power out of it. But once you had the mod done right and it was working well, then what you had to do was you drove the power out of the vehicle. You
100%.
physically drove it. Nowadays, unfortunately or rather fortunately, you got smaller engines, all turbocharged, a lot of electronics on the vehicles. And hence what happens is the car drives for you.
Basically.
So to answer the question about how evolution is taking place, to summarize it in a nutshell, in the old days, we drove cars. Today, the cars drive for you.
100%. Look, like you see this in general, like with all your advanced driving stability and all of that, all these assistants that you basically have. And I agree with you on that point. Like driving an old school V8 in an old, basically, where there's not much technology involved, like you say, you are driving the car as opposed to today's time where the cars are driving you.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us, like we know Powerpipes is synonymous with E30s. When you say an E30, Powerpipes goes together like bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
How did your love or your interest come into perfecting the E30 system specifically?
See, like I said, being in the game and being in the market for so long, well, not really so long, but being in the market, obviously, if you give good work, you please people, you do things that they want you to do, they're going to come back to you.
100%.
So coming back now to the E30 market. You must remember, in the old days, we're talking about 20 years ago, 25 years ago maybe, there was no spinning of E30 BMWs. The 325 IS was launched in the 88, 89, and very close to the late 80s. So the most prestigious vehicle at that time was a 325 IS.
100%.
If you had a 325 IS then, and you have a 325 IS now, then you have gold. Old is gold, you know? So you have gold in your box.
Still a boss.
So coming back into the question that you asked me about how did we get into the E30 market and how did we perfect it? Like I said, one was your normal cars that was launched, your normal aspirated cars that were launched. And then you had the IS. So there were specific different applications for both the cars. And then came the spinning market.
100%.
Now, like I said, 20 years ago, spinning was on a very, very small scale. And the car that they used for spinning was the E30 BMW, you know? So obviously being in the game and knowing a lot of people, so I was approached by a group of spinners. I said, Pops, we want to do this. What can you do for us? So obviously we put our heads together, built a nice exhaust system. I take my hat off to a guy called Jeff James. He's a very, very popular spinner. Currently, a lot of people know him. He was one of the first guys who came through to me. We did a deal on his car. I kind of sponsored the exhaust on his vehicle as well. He had branding on his car. And he went on the spinning market, and that is how basically the E30s became popular. More from the spinning market, and then obviously, like I said, the launch of the E30 325 IS and all of that. So that was the most prestige car in the era that when the business was like on its peak, you know?
Yeah. All right, so basically now we've gone through more or less the deets. Let's get into some juicy stuff, right? So tell me, Mr. Pops, being in the industry for 35 years, no one can just sit down and give us the knowledge that you're about to impart to us. So let's get into some juicy stuff, right? Tell me, have you ever been scammed by a client or basically any supplier? Like, what trials have you come across when it comes to clients? Like, look, have you been scammed?
In business, you got to have a big heart. Meaning, my policy in business is you win some, you lose some. 100%. You can't get every piece of the cake, okay? So to answer the question of being scammed, I wouldn't say scammed, being done in basically, you know. scam is like when they take money out of your bank without you knowing, you know?
Yeah.
I was more like,
Nigerian
I was
scammer.
more kind of like scammed in a sense of being given false, like, proof of payments, kind of, you know, releasing cars.
Tell us more about that one. I've heard there was somewhere along the grapevine, there was a fake proof of payment that was made for a pretty exorbitant amount. Just shed some light on
like
that.
I said, you know what happens is today everything's on EFT. So if the guy does an EFT and sends you a POP, a proof of payment, so hence there's money in your bank, you know. So the guy rocked up here, like I said, old buddy of mine, client of mine as well.
Oh, shucks.
And so that basically made matters worse in terms of being done in, because it's somebody known. Came in here with a BMW. We did some crazy work for him. Bill came up to about 35 odd Ks. Did a nice proof of payment, released the car, only to find a couple of days later there's no money in the bank and I was scammed, you know. So like I said, you win some, you lose some, but you got to have a big heart in business and you got to take it with a pinch of salt, take it on the chin, close the chapter and move on.
I guess that's how it goes. Like you say, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
And you can't have your bread buttered on both sides all the time.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? So tell us, okay, so in terms of your success in building your brand to what it is, give us at least what, we're not going to ask for all the secrets, obviously. So just tune us like a little bit of a sum in as to what is one of your secrets to success being in the business, obviously for 35 plus odd years.
Look, like I said, a few things. Like I said, number one, the idea was to be different, not to be like everybody else. So that helped a lot because being different, you'll always stand out from the rest.
100%.
Thereafter, like I said, as the evolution of cars took place, you had to basically up your game as well.
Yeah.
You have to, how should I say, bring in new ideas, new equipment, new designs.
Yeah.
You got to educate your staff and you got to like kind of be on top of the game, you know?
Okay, so give me another pop secret. Like what is it that it grounded you into being in the business for so long? Obviously dealing with different markets and stuff like that. What kept you centered and humbled in the approach of carrying on with all the recognition or fame that you can say the brand has achieved?
See, firstly, what it happens is you got to be a hands-on person.
Yeah.
In any business, you got to be hands-on.
Okay.
And that was my policy in business, getting underneath the ramps.
Yeah.
Working together with my team.
Yeah.
Guiding them along.
Yeah.
Make sure the applications are correct. That was one. And secondly, which is very, very important in my business, was giving the client a personalized kind of service, a personalized kind of exhaust system
100%.
that he wanted. It wasn't something that we were selling to the client. It's something what the client wanted and we were giving.
So it wasn't
that's
like
the secret.
It wasn't like this is what you're getting and that's it. No.
No. We listen to the clients. We try and they come with ideas. We try and give them basically what they want.
Yeah.
And if for any reason at the end of the entire journey or an entire build, it doesn't come out the way it was supposed to have come, we'll redo it and make sure it's done the way it is
100%.
with a different application. So when the client drives out of here, it's peace of mind and he's happy.
So there's a lot of like client satisfaction that basically that goes into it. So now tell me, like, to be in this industry, obviously for like 35 years later, what kept you in here though? What drives you to wake up in the morning? Like you reach a stage in life where you can just say, okay, you know what? My operation is set. My brand is well known. I can just let it do its thing. Like what drives you to still do this after 35 years?
You know, if you look at my, what's his name? My slogan, or you rather call it, or my catch line. My cash line says 35 years and not yet exhausted. 35 years and not yet exhausted. So that is the secret of what keeps me running still. No exhaustion. I enjoy every day. Every day is a new challenge. You look forward to coming to work. You're meeting with people. You're facing different challenges. So yes, it hasn't been a burden to me. Rather a pleasure to be at work.
So I guess that's basically what drives you every morning. And so like you said, basically in terms of your customer satisfaction, it's all about customer satisfaction. In today's time specifically, like if you're not pleased with the product, you simply go online, write a bad review and that's how it goes. So in terms of client satisfaction, I think the way you've instilled is pretty darn decent in terms of giving people the benefit of the doubt. You did touch on basically your team. Tell me now, so I personally know, the guys obviously don't know. Tell us about your team.
My team is a very old team.
Okay.
Meaning, if I have to say to you that I've got a staff member that's been with me for 30 years plus, 33 years plus.
Wow.
It may sound strange,
Yeah.
but it is true. I've got a guy, Paul. He's
33
been with me
years.
for 33 plus
Wow.
years. My team is not a team that chops and changes all the time.
Okay.
I have staff that's been with me for 10, 15, up to 18 years.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
it's long-term staff.
Yeah.
And because it's long-term staff, they understand your operation very well.
Yeah.
They understand your application very well.
Yeah.
And they also understand you when you are upset and you're not upset. They'll hear about it as well.
100%.
So my attitude towards them tells them how pleased or unpleased I am with them in terms of the way we handle and we go about doing things in a day.
100%. So basically, your team, the way it sounds like is that you are part of your team as well. It's not necessarily that you are the boss of basically them under you, whatever it is. We all obviously work together as a team. Now, keeping staff on for that long, you need basically, like you said, they know exactly what you want, how you like it, and how you need it. So there must have been like some secret advice you can give us in terms of keeping your staff for that long. Because I mean, if somebody's working for you for 33 years, if somebody came to us 5 years ago in DNGO and comes back 10 years and sees the same guy working on his car, obviously like that, he feels much more confident because he sees that, hey, this team is a very solid team that you've got in place. So what is your success in dealing with staff and team members specifically?
You must remember, firstly, here at Powerpipes, there's no boss, there's no owner. We are a family.
100%.
But we have people in charge overseeing the operation.
Yeah.
So with my team, they know that they don't work for me.
Yeah.
They know we work together.
100%.
They don't work for me, we work together.
Yeah.
That's one. Secondly, you got to look after your staff.
Yeah.
You have to look after your staff. You have to listen to them. They are human beings.
100%.
They have their good days. They have the bad days. They have the problems. So you have to be that compassionate person who would be able to listen to your staff members and give some advice as well, and also some comfort. So that's the second thing. And thirdly, like I said, is you got to treat your staff well.
Yeah.
For your staff to be with you for so long, you got to treat them well.
That must tell you something about management.
At the end of the day, it's all about how you treat your staff and how they treat you,
100%.
Yeah, your treatment towards them is what they would give back to you.
Yeah, I feel you. So tell me now, in terms of your modifications and stuff like that, right? What is your average turnaround times for, like, say, for example, a turbocharged car like the A45 we're sitting behind?
Look, this one that we're sitting behind, we need to do the hybrid turbo conversion on this one here, right? So hence what will happen is we're going to strip the turbo down, obviously send it through to the guys to get it done hybrid. This could take a week, up to a week and a half.
Okay, fair. So like your turnaround time is about a week and a half.
We have on the left extreme, on the extreme left, left on the bottom, we have the Audi, the A3, 1.8. There we had a full,
hybrid turbo setup.
We had a hybrid turbo setup there with bigger intercooler, with the plumbing done. So yeah, the turnaround time is nothing. By Powerpipes, the longer you leave your car by us,
the better it's basically going to be.
And we appreciate it more, because the more time you give us, is the better we can give the results.
Well, like to say, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah. So that, like I said, answering a question, anything from a week to 2 weeks.
So tell me, in terms of like modifications for a first-time user, like if I just bought a car now, what pointers would you give me to be like on my first modification? Like, what would you suggest?
What we'd first do is obviously caution. For first-time car buyers, first-time tuners, first-time, first-time buyers who's basically wanting to mod the vehicles. The first advice you got to give them is caution.
Okay.
That you don't overdo it in anything.
Yeah.
You don't read on the internet and say, I want that, and that for myself. Or this one did that, and I want it. No. We give you some advice whereby we start you off.
Yeah.
My famous, line with, especially with the new kind of kids on the block is, let's do a starter pack,
Yeah.
Let's do a starter pack.
Just
let's start
a little
somewhere.
bit some to get the
like
guys
I said,
in motion.
Advice that we give them is that, like, start slowly, appreciate the power, the different mods that's being done on your vehicle,
100%.
the different stages, the different phases that we do. Appreciate it, And hence, as you drive along and as you mod along, you'll start appreciating your car more and more and more. The other thing is, if you have to do everything today, then you do not know what's working well and what's not working well as
100%.
well. So that is why we normally give the guys advice to say, do it in stages.
Start here.
Appreciate the little power and enjoy the car through its different phases. And hence, every time you spend money, you'll find that it's money well spent, and you'll feel contentment behind the whole
100%.
thing. Yeah.
And in terms of like your modifications and stuff, right? So what would you say is basically any harms or let's say disadvantages and advantages of an exhaust system?
Look, when we talk of mods, there's many links to mods when it comes to the car game and especially being an exhaust game. Remember, our business is primarily exhaust. So because we're doing exhaust, hence we got there's turbos on vehicles as well. So you got to have to be now working with turbos as well. And hence, because you're working with turbos, you get intercoolers.
Yeah.
Then you get air filters.
Okay.
So what happens is with mods, you're going to have to do it in stages, number one. Number two...
And obviously get supporting mods in place.
Yes. And then when you talk of mods, like I said, we start off with downpipes, exhaust, air filtration.
Okay, let's touch on basically like just a downpipe exhaust system, and let's say downpipe exhaust system and a drop-in air filter. What are the advantages of basically or disadvantages of such?
Look, basically, for you to understand, most of the cars that's launched now are turbocharged cars. So that is why we go for the downpipe option, because like I mentioned earlier in our conversation, the word catalytic converter. So bring it back to that. So most of your vehicles, the turbocharged vehicles, has a thing called a catalytic converter, which is on the downpipe.
Yeah.
So that's a bit restrictive. So what we do is we normally advise the guys to start there.
With the downpipe.
Yeah, with the downpipe, it's better breathing, obviously, of the turbo.
Yeah.
And better, longer turbo life as well. And thereafter, what happens is we build the exhaust system to complement the downpipe. And your drop-in air filter basically is to enhance your airflow.
Yeah.
So to sum performance up in a nutshell, I will sum it in a few lines. Performance is how much of air gets in and how much of air gets out.
100%.
Air getting in, which saves with filtration and with induction with colder intakes. And obviously with your intercoolers and all of that, your bigger intercoolers on your turbos. And air getting out obviously is to do with free flow exhaust systems, your custom builds, etc. So what mods are done on the engine is how you would basically build your exhaust system to complement the mods
100%.
that's been done on the engine coming out on the exhaust.
I feel you. So in terms of modding wise, there's not just one set way to do it. You say that, so we have basically supporting mods. So if you're doing a hybrid turbo, for example, you need to do an intercooler, you need to do an intake. Reason being is because just by hybriding your turbo alone, that needs support, obviously cooling, air filtration, obviously better airflow and stuff like that. So that's basically what we've got for you guys today in terms of Power to Talk episode 1. Ladies and gents, that's how it's done. My main man Pops, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast.
Cheers, guys.
It's been a breeze. Trust you guys have taken a little bit of a sum in, if not some knowledge, a little bit of laughs, but that's how it goes. And we'll get you guys on episode 2. Let's go.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.